Okay, this is a short video on how I prime steel panels for oil and acrylic brush painting. So unlike my other videos where I use the transparent sealer to seal a metal surface so that you can see the underlying metal shine through, this time I'm going for an opaque finish. To accomplish this, I'm going to use two of the best polymer-based products in the market. First of all, I'm going to prime the panel with the KD3000 product from House of Color. This is a hybrid epoxy-based primer that has rust-inhibiting pigments. What I don't want to do is I don't want to prime my steel panel opaquely using a water-based product because it's going to be a little bit hard to see if I've left any corrosion on the surface. So I'm going to use this first to get a nice urethane-based priming layer where I'm pretty much guaranteed that there's no corrosion or any other problems that are going to occur. The second step is to use the Createx Autoborne sealers, which are water-based, to provide color. So I've got a bunch of these. I'm going to blend in a yellow ochre type color on the panel, much like this one. And the reason I'm using two products is to take advantage of the strengths of each of them. KD3000 is a really good primer. It inhibits rust very nicely and goes on very smoothly. And then the Autoborne sealers are great. They stick to almost everything and they'll stick to the KD3000 really well. They're available in a wide variety of colors and it's easy to mix them. They're also cost effective and most importantly, oil and acrylic paints stick to them really nicely. In particular, if you sand this with 600, 800, 1000 grit, it creates a nice surface for those types of paints. Here's my prepared panel. What I've done is I've sanded it with 80 grits, and that's what's recommended by the technical manual for the KD series primers. Also, very important, do not use any acid-based solution with this. So if you read the manual, it tells you not to use any self-etching primers, and unlike my other videos where I use the acid prep underneath the Createx transparent sealer, don't use it with the KD series, otherwise you're going to lose a little bit of that surface tension and cohesion. Here's our prime panel. You can see it's a nice light gray, pretty good coat of it. So because I let this sit overnight, I'm going to have to do some wet sanding on this with 500 to 600 grit sandpaper. Once I've done that, I can be sure that the Createx sealers have a nice surface that they can grab onto and really create a strong bond. Once you've sanded your panel, don't forget to take all the loose dirt and debris off the surface. So you can use a post-sanding cleaner or wax and grease remover or something like that. Just make sure the solvent isn't too strong that you're going to go damage the finish afterwards. The next step is to take my Autoborne sealers and to mix up the color that I want for my final layer. Okay, so here's our finished panel. The surface right now is pretty smooth, so what I'm going to have to do before I use this for oil painting is sand it with 800 to 600 grit sandpaper. Just to compare, the panel that I did today is here, and this is the panel that I made in my video in the transparent sealer. So if you recall, I made this with yellow ochre pigment and a bit of titanium white to bring the tint up. This obviously is more of a peach, and this is more of a traditional tinted yellow ochre. But you certainly could get closer if you wanted to with the basic Autoborne sealer colors, right? So if you had the red, the yellow, the blue, the black, and the white in the Autoborne sealers, you can get any color combination that Createx sells. And if I took more time, I could certainly get a panel that's closer to this color. That's how I prime my steel panels for oil and acrylic painting. Remember, we're priming opaquely here, so I want a colored background. I don't want to see the metal through it. If you do want to prime transparently where you can see the metal, I would check out my video on how to use the Createx transparent sealer. In this case, steel isn't a super common form of substrate for oil painters. However, it is a very useful one. It's worth considering. The reason is that it's incredibly strong, right? It takes urethane and other forms of paint pretty well if you prepare it correctly. And most importantly, it's a fraction of the price of aluminum and particularly the price of copper. So I find it very handy to work with, and I prefer it over those other two metals in many ways. Now, in future, what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how to use the KD3000 together with a lead alkyd ground to prime an oil panel opaquely. Now, that's a more traditional type of ground for oil painting. However, if you have spray equipment, I find that these two are much more efficient and much more useful. I can prime one of these panels in almost no time, and I'm not waiting for the lead alkyd ground to dry for, in some cases, days, depending on the manufacturer. So check it out, try both of the products together, they work quite nicely. Thanks a lot.